Hello and welcome. You're watching To The Point. Many people hoped the Prime Minister would address the growing political crisis facing his party and government in yesterday's Mann Ki Baat. But he didn't say a word. And now his persistent, some would say deliberate silence is raising key questions. First, if Sushma Swaraj and Vasundhara Raje's behaviour does not call for resignation, what for Mr. Modi constitutes a resignation offence? Second, in a democracy, how long can the Prime Minister refuse to respond to the opposition's questions? Third, is it wise for the Prime Minister to continue to deny the media's exposés? And fourth, does the Prime Minister really believe he can protect his government's image by refusing to acknowledge the crisis and by behaving, as some would say, as if he was an ostrich burying his head in the sand? Over the next 1 hour, those are the issues we shall discuss. My guests are the former Editor-in-Chief of the Times of India, Lalit Modi, the well-known television journalist Nalini Singh, Hindustan Times Associate Editor Prashant Jha, and BJP spokesperson Lalit Modi, as well as Congress spokesperson Ajay Kumar. Prashant Jha, yesterday was the Prime Minister's first Mann Ki Baat after the Sushma Swaraj Vasundhara Raje crisis happened, and in fact, that Mann Ki Baat was 2 weeks after the crisis broke. Yet the Prime Minister had nothing to say about it. In your eyes, Prashant Jha, did the Prime Minister duck the problem to his own cost and his government's cost? Or is the Prime Minister right to argue that Mann Ki Baat is for light-hearted talk and not for big government issues?
Karan, I think the Prime Minister missed an opportunity. In a democracy, the way public conversations are conducted, you cannot ignore questions that the opposition raises, that the media raises. The Mann Ki Baat is an innovative idea. It is an idea that the Prime Minister came up with to tackle the criticism that his predecessor faced, that the Prime Minister doesn't communicate. But this cannot be a monologue that happens in a vacuum. The Prime Minister operates in a larger political ecosystem and he has to respond to the concerns of the times. I would just like to remind you that when there was a controversy about the black money issue, the Prime Minister used the Mann Ki Baat platform to provide a categorical commitment of his government's intent. When the Nepal assistance happened right after the earthquake, the Prime Minister took pride in the way India responded to Nepal and provided assistance. So for the Prime Minister to now, or his supporters to now argue that Mann Ki Baat is only for light-hearted conversation and it's not to respond to contemporary concerns is disingenuous at best. The Prime Minister should have responded to concerns that have erupted, and I think it will be held against him.
Lalit Modi, let me build on the point you just heard from Prashant Jha by pointing this out. The raison d'etre, many say, of Mann Ki Baat is that it's an opportunity for the Prime Minister to speak from his heart, either about issues that are troubling him or about issues that excite him. Does his silence about the Vasundhara Raje Scindia Sushma Swaraj crisis suggest that it doesn't concern him, that it doesn't worry him? Because that's the message his silence seems to suggest.
I don't think that he regards these issues to be of no consequence. But you should understand what the Prime Minister's general conduct has been. He will speak on issues of his own choosing. He will not discuss issues which are the choice of the opposition or the media which he detests. So he's chosen his silence, either because breaking that silence might bring him more trouble, or because he has some sort of a strategy which is not spelled out, with which to deal with these problems as and when they come up in the monsoon session of Parliament. So we are not quite sure whether the silence, which is at any rate deliberate, is going to lead on to something else. And here, Karan, I'd merely like to tell you that for the moment, following, I think, what Johnson once said a long time ago, he believes that it is best that he retards what he cannot repel and that he offers a palliative instead of offering a cure. That is the stand at the moment. He might change that later if circumstances change, but at any rate, he will speak at a time and a place of his choosing, not otherwise.
Nalini Singh, you heard Dilip say that the Prime Minister believes he will decide when to speak, he will decide what to speak about, and he will decide how much he says. And that is, of course, his prerogative, as it is any man's prerogative. But on the other hand, there is a nation today that is concerned about the situation. They feel depressed about it. They feel this is damaging the Prime Minister and the government's image. Does he not owe a responsibility as Prime Minister to the voters of India to give them some comfort and assurance? His silence fails to do that.
I must say, I agree with both Prashant and Dilip. But I would say that his silence is actually the message. What he's doing is that he is making sure that he doesn't have post hoc embarrassment. In Vasundhara Raje's case, what's happening is the details are coming out drip, drip. They're coming out as if there was, this is a crisis which is happening every moment. So in order to avoid the very deep embarrassment to say, sorry, but I didn't know this. And I truly believe, I found out from my sources that actually Vasundhara Raje has probably not exposed all, revealed all details. And also, of course, the media has now gone to 1949 to the Sardar Patel time, but did he give the Dholpur Palace or not? So whatever, but I think this is one. The other one, I think, most interestingly is that the Prime Minister is distancing himself from the BJP in this particular round. What he's doing is let the BJP brazen it out, fight it out, or go down under with the embedded journalists or not.
The second intrigues me, because can the Prime Minister, who's only Prime Minister because he is the leader of 282 BJP MPs, distance himself from his own party?
Yes, indeed. What he can do is to make himself unavailable for these daily comments or half-hourly comments. Nalin Kohli will tell you much more about it. But what happens really is, all decisions that are being taken which are on a half-hourly basis, the BJP spokesmen are coming along.
And not the Prime Minister. Okay, let me put this intriguing theory first. I will put it to Dilip Padgankar, and then I'll go to Nalin Kohli, because I'm very keen to hear, Mr. Kohli, what you think of it. Dilip, do you buy this argument that the Prime Minister, by his silence, is distancing himself from his own party, that he's actually suggesting that BJP spokespersons should handle this? Somehow this is not for him to handle, and he's above it and beyond it and therefore distant from it?
Well, Karan, the fact of the matter is that the shenanigans of Lalit Modi and the alleged involvement of two senior leaders of the BJP, one who holds a senior position in the government, another who is the Chief Minister of Rajasthan, that has begun to take the sheen off the Modi government. There is a question of credibility involved. Now, how do you address that question of credibility? You can address it by either taking recourse to legal quibbles, or you can brush off issues of propriety. This is what various spokesmen of the BJP have been trying to do, without too much success, I'm afraid. Okay. For the moment, therefore, my feeling is that the Prime Minister is silent because he has no other choice. He is damned if he speaks, and he's damned if he doesn't.
Let me bring you in, Nalin Kohli. You heard Nalini Singh, who has her own sources, she's close to the BJP, say that the Prime Minister is distancing himself from his own party. Now, I found that surprising. After all, he's only Prime Minister because he's head of 282 BJP MPs. And I've never heard of a Prime Minister in any parliamentary democracy distancing himself from his own party. But she's convinced this is true. And she also says that you will explain why it's happening. So first, as party spokesman, I can see you're smiling, but will you explain, is he distancing himself from his own party?
In this crisis.
Well, let Nalin answer. You had your share.
Well, first of all, Mr. Thapar, in a democracy, each one of us is entitled to our view. So I don't think we are going to challenge each other's views. Let me just put out some points. Anyone who can claim to know Modi ji's mind would be of immense use to the Congress party in particular. And because for the last 10 years, at least when he was Chief Minister of Gujarat, 13 years, everyone was trying to understand what is going in his mind and when he'll respond, how he'll respond. Let me present a second theory. If I go with what Mr. Jha is saying, then if the Prime Minister had hypothetically used Mann Ki Baat to speak on this issue, the next logical question that would come from possibly Mr. Jha himself, where was the media given a chance to ask a counter question? So in a political ecosystem, everyone will look at something or the other. But the Prime Minister has spoken many times. He's not spoken, and he has spoken when he chose to be. There were allegations galore that this government is allowing or following a communal agenda. He had said it at the beginning of his term, and then when he got the appropriate opportunity, he said it unequivocally, clearly, and absolutely bluntly again. Now let's go back to this issue in particular. Mann Ki Baat, which you say the citizens would be worried, was actually highlighting what citizens are experiencing. 10 crore people applying and already taking the insurance scheme and the welfare scheme of pension in 2 months. Is that not affecting citizens? Secondly, pointing out about selfie of daughter which has started from a village and saying let's make it a national movement using Raksha Bandhan,
so
which unfortunately the Congress...
priorities than the Sushma Vasundhara crisis
those
as far
are
as citizens
actually,
are concerned.
I'm coming to that because the last part I'll come to is Nalini's answer is linked to this. Please, so I'll take a minute more only. So, or talking about Raksha Bandhan as an opportunity to increase this. Though unfortunately the Congress communalized it. I mean, they forgot the Prime Minister tweeted on Ramzan and tried to communalize it.
Let's come sharply to the point rather than meander all over the...
So therefore, why I'm pointing these out is that this is the nature of Mann Ki Baat. Now coming to what Nalini ji is saying is, please look at it from another perspective. The Prime Minister is the Prime Minister of India. He's not the Prime Minister of only the BJP. He's the Prime Minister of each one of us who's also on this program. So he will choose to speak as the Prime Minister of India, and at a political rally or at a political function, when he chooses to do so, he will certainly speak the political things.
I want to quote to you, Mr. Kohli, what L.K. Advani said to Anand Bazar Patrika on Saturday. These are his exact words. For a politician to command people's trust is the biggest responsibility. What morality demands is Raj Dharma and the need to maintain probity in public life. And many people believe that Mr. Advani was A, hinting that the Prime Minister's silence is not Raj Dharma, and B, that this silence will lose the people's trust. Now, I'm not just talking about silence in Mann Ki Baat, I'm talking about silence over the last 2 weeks. Many people saw that as a rap across Mr. Modi's knuckles from an elder statesman who was once his mentor.
Well, those are words that apply to each one of us. And exactly as Mr. Advani had spoken on emergency, everyone rushed thinking that this was a comment on the BJP, till his own statement came out that it was on the Congress. I think those sage words apply to the Congress in totality.
All right.
And I'm sure they can, since they quote Mr. Advani so often, they should take that advice to heart and certainly do something about it. We won't have to deal with the effects of scams laid out by them.
Ajay Kumar, let me bring you in. On Sunday, both Ghulam Nabi Azad and Digvijay Singh roundly, sharply and fairly forcefully criticized the Prime Minister for his silence at Mann Ki Baat. Mr. Azad even went so far as to suggest that soon people will be calling for the Prime Minister's resignation. But have you forgotten how Mr. Dr. Manmohan Singh, forgive me, was repeatedly silent? Over 2G, he actually pleaded coalition compulsion. In 2004, when summons for arrest were issued against then Coal Minister Shibu Soren and notices were hammered on Mr. Soren's home front door saying he was wanted, the Prime Minister was silent, Shibu Soren was absconding. 10 days went by before we had any resolution of that crisis. So with what face today does Mr. Azad or Digvijay Singh criticize this Prime Minister's silence? Your Prime Minister was no better.
You know, first of all, Karan, the 2014 election threw a verdict which brought Bharatiya Janata Party to power. So obviously we did not give the right message to the people. We had to get our house in order. Now that they are in the government, you have a Prime Minister who tweets on Mozambique Independence Day, but doesn't have time for the Lalit Modi, Vasundhara Raje, Modi Gate episode. And I was listening to my erudite colleague from BJP, Nalan, saying that the Prime Minister of India will speak when he feels like. He speaks as a BJP leader overseas, but in India he doesn't seem to have the time to speak like a Prime Minister on issues which are occupying their mind. As far as, you know, event management and selfie and all this, we'll continue to, the solution for, I don't want to waste your time on solution for the women empowerment is not taking selfies, it is actually governing. But leave aside the, you know, the event management government which this present government is, and they continue to believe that governance is publicity and event management and Twitter and the Facebook photos. So, but the important part is what the criticism is coming from Kirti Azad. Forget the Congress.
No, let's not go off to Kirti Azad. Let's stick to the Prime Minister.
No, one sec. So what I'm saying, no, we are the Prime Minister, like Nalin would like us to believe that these issues are not important. The issue is that the government is a single-man show. The ministers have no role in this government. Mr. Modi wants to...
I think you made your point, Ajay Kumar.
Important that the party...
Ajay Kumar, I think in all honesty you made your point. Let's not take up more time. You made your point pretty forcefully. Let's leave it there. I'm going to go to Prashant Jha because I think the time has come to move beyond questions about the Prime Minister's silence, Prashant, and actually ask what further issues that silence raises. First of all, if the Prime Minister feels there's no need for either Sushma Swaraj or Vasundhara Raje Scindia to resign, then doesn't it raise the question, what sort of indiscretion, what sort of lapse would necessitate a minister's resignation? Most people think this lapse requires them to step down. If he thinks it doesn't, then where does he draw the line? Don't you think that's a critical question that's raised now?
I think absolutely, Karan. You know, we know that when the party won power in 2014, a key slogan for the party was probity in public life and a corruption-free government. We know that on the first anniversary, Mr. Modi did make a lot of political capital out of the fact that it has been a scam-free government. This is not about the deceit that Vasundhara Raje Scindia may have pulled off on Indian authorities by backing Lalit Modi's application. It is not about the extent of impropriety that Sushma Swaraj may have committed. It is about the perceptional damage that is being done to the BJP and to the government. And this is not just an issue about the BJP. It is an issue that directly hits the government's credibility, which is why the Prime Minister should have spoken. So I think you're right. He is, by not speaking out, setting a bar that we quite don't know of in terms of what the levels of propriety would be acceptable and what would not be acceptable in government. I'd just like to flag one more issue. You know, I think the silence, we were thinking about the theories for the silence. The fact is that the Prime Minister may be silent because he doesn't know quite what to do. We know Vasundhara Raje is a powerful Chief Minister. There is a potential that she will walk out of the party. She will take not only MLAs but also party workers in Rajasthan. And the last elections that BJP won in the state was primarily won because of Vasundhara Raje being projected as the Chief Minister. That is a risk that the Prime Minister, it seems, doesn't want to take. But we also know that the buck in the BJP today stops with the Narendra Modi, Amit Shah combined. So escaping responsibility is not an option.
I saw your finger going up, Nandan Kohli. I'll come to you in a moment's time, but let me first bring in Dilip Padhankar and then I'll come to you. Dilip Padhankar, the BJP is saying, although they're only saying it behind closed doors, but nonetheless they're saying it as often as they can, that it's only on issues of financial corruption that ministers will be asked to resign. In other words, moral impropriety is not a resignation issue. Are they correct to make that distinction and see financial corruption as a resignation issue, but somehow moral impropriety as something that can be either forgiven or even overlooked? Is that a correct distinction in your eyes? Dilip Padhankar, did you hear me? I don't think Dilip did. Let me put that question to you.
That you said, I'm sorry, the
question was this. BJP suggests that financial corruption is an issue on which they will demand resignations, but not on moral impropriety. That can be forgiven or overlooked.
I think, Karan, what BJP has said is that morally and ethically, Vasundhara Raje might be in the wrong, but legally,
actually, forgive me, no. Gadkari said, no, I have to correct you. I have to correct you. Gadkari said very forcefully that logically, legally and ethically, she was in the right. He used the word ethically specifically.
Yeah, I would say that the first sacking is an extremely important event.
But you're not answering my question. I'm stopping you because I think the question is more important than you're diverting. The question is this. The BJP is saying repeatedly that if it's an issue of financial corruption, i.e. money changing hands, ministers will resign. But if it's an issue of moral impropriety, ministers will not be made to resign. Do you accept that distinction? That's the question.
I would say no, I cannot accept that distinction because what is wrong is wrong. But I must tell you that this time when we are talking about the silence of the Prime Minister, etc., please remember, let me finish this. Please remember that the fight this time is with not a political party per se, but with the media. The media is being extremely tenacious.
I'll come to the moment's time.
It's being tenacious about it.
Let's not jump subjects. I'll come to it in a moment's time. But I think structure is important. You're agreeing with the argument that moral impropriety is a resigning issue.
Yes, I am agreeing.
And therefore, if a person is excused because there's no money changing hands, it's only a moral issue, that's wrong.
That's wrong, which is why I'm saying the first sacking is an extremely important event because it gives
It sets an example.
Yes, it sets an example for the rest of the term.
Which also suggests that if you fail to sack when you should the first time round, that sends the wrong message out.
Well, I'm not saying that this is the first, that they should be sacking or not, according to their own matrix. But what I'm saying is the first sacking is going to be an extremely important event.
Let me, Nalin Kohli, remind you of what your manifesto said, and I'm quoting your manifesto. The biggest challenge, mark those words, the biggest challenge that India faces today is to restore the credibility of and trust in the union government. Now, if moral propriety is excused and not made a resignation issue, how can you possibly restore credibility and trust in the government?
Well, that question is also linked to a comment by Mr. Jha, which was talking about the importance of perception. Yes, perception is important and it is critical if there is no performance. But to believe that the voters will go only on perception and not performance might be a little fallacious. So therefore, from a Congress perspective, the entire battle could have been perception based, because at the end of the day, they couldn't even have performance to speak of. And that's exactly what I was pointing about, figures from the Mann Ki Baat or otherwise. I mean, 15 crore, that's 150 million accounts in less than 1 year. That's not a joke. It couldn't be done in 40 years.
Mr. Chidambaram has pointed out on this program that Congress left you 24 crore accounts. Please remember, this is a scheme that existed in Congress days to change the name. They left you 24 crore. You only added 15.
No, hold on. In 10 years.
No, the scheme is only 2 years old. Forgive me, the scheme is only 2 years old, not 10 years old.
Let me answer, then come in, Ajay. Let me just finish my argument, please. So therefore, this is done in less than a year. That was what was being pointed out.
But the point I was making is not... So are you saying that credibility and trust is only to be determined by performance and creation of bank accounts? That credibility and trust is not determined by the moral standing, by the propriety of ministers, by the fact that they indulge in wrongdoing and get away with it?
Not all, Mr. Thapar. I was coming to the propriety issue thereafter. First, there has to be a ground of substance to say propriety. The Congress certainly can't be that, guiding principle that this is propriety and this is not. It has to be based on something, right? Take today's press conference by Mr. Jairam Ramesh. They don't even have the facts that the Dholpur Palace was returned back in 1957. They don't even have facts that in 2007 an out-of-court settlement between Mr. Dushyant Singh and his father resulted in the property coming to them. And they don't even have the facts that in 2010 the Congress government gave compensation to Mr. Dushyant Singh for acquisition of some land.
Mr. Kohli,
so therefore, is this impropriety?
Mr. Kohli,
so therefore,
I congratulate you on your command of the facts with regard to Vasundhara Raje Scindia. You're absolutely right that the Congress press conference today was very substantially, I believe, proven wrong by the press conference that the Rajasthan government had. But come to Sushma Swaraj, the weak link. Sushma Swaraj, as foreign minister, abused her power to give British travel documents or to facilitate British travel documents for a man whose passport had been revoked by the government. Number two, she did it for a man who was a client of her daughter and of her husband, therefore conflict of interest. Number three, she did it for a man who a year earlier had been approached by her husband to help her nephew get into a British university, so quid pro quo. Sushma is guilty of three things: abuse of power, conflict of interest, quid pro quo.
May I answer?
It's crystal clear in her case. Not only has she not resigned, your Prime Minister is silent, and he has now a foreign minister who's not just guilty of moral impropriety, some would say she's guilty technically of breaching 13(1)(d)(3) of the Prevention of Corruption Act. And that's criminal misconduct.
If you want to use 13(1)(d), you might also want to refer to Section 7. So therefore, there's a lot that you could quote in sections, but let's get back to the substance.
I thank you for drawing my attention to it. I'll bring it up next time and refer it to you.
You may, but those sections have no value because they don't apply here. They won't stand the scrutiny of any court of case.
13(1)(d)(3) does. You can't deny it.
No, certainly I'm going to deny it, because as I'm saying again, it won't stand the scrutiny of any process of court, and I say it with confidence. Nevertheless, let's return beyond the legal argument to the questions you've raised, Mr. Thapar. One by one, did anyone, whether it's Ms. Swaraj, Ms. Vasundhara Raje Scindia, anyone from the BJP government, assist Mr. Modi, Lalit Modi, to leave the country? Why was he permitted to go?
What's that got to do with it? That's a diversion. That's got nothing to do with the issues.
Why was FEMA... 1 minute.
Those got nothing to do with the issues. You can't divert.
It does. I'm not diverting.
I'll give you time to answer, but not to divert.
Not at all. I'm not interested in diverting. It's a great opportunity to put the facts out there.
No, but that's wrong.
At the same time. No, not at all. I'm coming to that.
Sushma Swaraj contacted the British High Commissioner of her own volition to ask him that she had no objection to Lalit Modi being given a British travel document. That was abuse of power.
The reason I'm saying is that the reason that I'm pointing out these facts is, has Ms. Swaraj contributed to the dilution of the cases or prevented the return of Mr. Lalit Modi or facilitated his leaving? Now let's come to your question. On the issue that you're saying that she says that she made up, no, I'm answering it. I'm not worried.
You can't divert.
No, I'm not diverting.
Come back to the conflict of interest, come back to the quid pro quo, come back to the fact she contacted the British High Commissioner. Those are the three issues I raised.
Let's go one by one. On the admission case, Has the university said that it was done as a favor?
It's not that the university has to say it. Can you deny that Sushma Swaraj's husband wrote to Lalit Modi asking him in turn to contact Keith Vaz, saying that in England,
in the United States, I'll show you a counter standard. I'll show you a counter standard. If a journalist has a cup of tea with someone he's supposed to interview, by American journalist standards, that's incorrect. It's impropriety. So therefore, pause on that. Just raising a question may not be correct. Second, did she not say, as per your rules? Has she said, bend any rules, do a special favor? Not at all. Is that benefit to Mr. Modi, or was it on the humanitarian aspect?
That the
people who boarded the ships of the government of India, of the Navy, coming from Yemen, in the presence of a union minister, was there, if there was a criminal there, who may be, so would you say that it was incorrect?
Let me bring in Dilip Padgankar, who's listening to this argument, and get an independent voice, so it's not just you and me. Dilip Padgankar, the issue here is whether Sushma Swaraj provides an argument to suggest that, in fact, by not asking her to resign, the Prime Minister is condoning a form of moral impropriety that damages his image, the government's image, and, to be honest, Indian democracy. Where do you stand on that issue?
Karan, these are absolute quibbles. The fact of the matter is that the stench of scandal has reached the doorstep of the External Affairs Minister and the doorstep of the Rajasthan Chief Minister. And no amount of the sweet smell of the government's successes is going to drive that stench away, particularly when the monsoon session of Parliament is about to start. And you can trust the opposition and you can trust the media to ensure that the Prime Minister comes absolutely clean on these two issues. At the moment, we are going around in circles. There are legal quibbles being advanced. These are really not at the least bit persuasive. So it is imperative, I think, that the Prime Minister should clear the air. And not just clear the air, but tell the country what action he proposes to take to ensure that that stench of scandal does not reach his own doorstep.
Welcome back to The Point. We're discussing the Prime Minister's silence over the Sushma Swaraj Vasundhara Raje crisis and what message it sends out. Prashant Jha, let's come to the fact that the Prime Minister doggedly, repeatedly and very, very clearly refuses to respond to any of the press conferences, any of the questions the opposition is raising. Some people say that because he has a majority of 282, he doesn't need to worry about Congress or the small parties. He's comfortable, he's secure, he can therefore ignore the opposition. Is that the message you get from the way he's responding to Congress press conferences?
You know, you got an answer to that, Karan, when Mr. Kohli was giving his first comment, which was that the Prime Minister will choose whenever he wants to speak. He is not going to get dictated by the media or the opposition, and this has been his track record in Gujarat. I personally think that this is not a wise strategy, and we saw this in the case of Hindutva belligerents at the end of last year. A session or several weeks in the winter session of Parliament got obstructed. There was widespread media attention to the Ghar Wapsi campaign. The PM refused to speak, but as national condemnation increased, as there was international rebuke, including by President Obama, a comment by him, we saw that the Prime Minister did in fact have to respond. So you cannot turn a blind eye to what is happening around you in this political ecosystem in a democracy. And I think the Prime Minister at some point, maybe in Parliament, will have to respond. I'd just like to flag one more issue, Karan. And this is, you know, I'm not interested in the Congress versus BJP battles. But the point here is that the BJP came in on the promise that we are going to clean up Delhi. We are going to, this is a neat politics business club, and we are going to create a rules-based regime. Their claims about the spectrum and coal allocation was that they have adopted a rules-based regime. Now, one of the big sectors in which there is an unhealthy politics capital, politics business nexus is cricket. And this was,
I'm stopping you. Let's not widen this discussion because we'll end up losing focus. We'll bring cricket up later on another day. Let's stick to Vasundhara. Let's stick to Sushma Swaraj. You know, Ajay Kumar, you may be critical as a party of the fact that the Prime Minister is ignoring your press conferences and the questions you raise. But do you remember how Rajiv Gandhi, when he had a majority, behaved over Bofas? The opposition were driven to the point of frustration where they resigned their seats in Parliament, but that didn't change Rajiv Gandhi's attitude. And go further back in time. Do you remember how Indira Gandhi, when she had a majority, behaved when questions were raised about L.N. Mishra and his behavior, or Jagjeevan Ram, who'd forgotten to pay his taxes for 10 years? I mean, Mrs. Gandhi ignored all of that. She thought there were no business of the opposition to raise questions about it. So how's her behavior or Rajiv's behavior any better than Mr. Modi's behavior today?
You know, Karan, we always learn from history. I mean, if you look at the what happened post-election and however tall the leader is, one thing which is critically important is what the will of the people is. But I like the way Nalin is saying that the BJP decides the moral standard of who will resign and who will not resign. It is not for whether it is people on this panel like Prashant or Dilip or Nalini or me or him,
my question.
Including Nalin, will decide.
You're sidestepping my question. I'm saying that Mr. Modi's silence is no different to Mr. Rajiv Gandhi's dismissive attitude to the opposition or Mrs. Gandhi's dismissive attitude.
And if you continue, especially in these modern times, you continue to ignore the voice of what is happening and what the people, especially where there's super communication with Twitter, Facebook, TV channels and everything else. The news, I mean, even what's happening in places like Bihar, what are they mumbling? They're saying Mann Modi instead of, you know, Mann ki baat, it is Mann Modi ki baat.
Ajay Kumar, I gave you an opportunity to answer a question, but you're not answering the question at all. You're making up one of your own because the one I asked you is embarrassing because you can't justify Rajiv's behavior whilst criticizing Mr. Modi's. At least be honest enough and admit that.
Karan, I was candid enough to say that whether it was the emergency, we went back, we paid the price, we came back, did our homework and got back the trust of the people. Whether it was Mr. Rajiv Gandhi's overwhelming majority and what the results of the post that overwhelming majority. My question again is for all people who continue to ignore lessons of history. And I like this where, you know, Prashant is saying that BJP came with the promise of property. The fact is the way Gujarat was run was the model which is being brought in Delhi.
I am not widening this discussion to encompass every possible thought that comes to your head. That's not fair. Let's stick pointedly to this discussion. I acknowledge the fact that you were
open
enough to accept that there were lapses made by Congress, and I congratulate you for doing so. I'm not sure whether your party will. Pointing out that Rajiv Gandhi didn't behave properly does not sit very well with Sonia Gandhi or her son Rahul Gandhi, but I applaud you for having had the courage to say it. Let's come. I'm going to move on. I'm not going to go on to divergences that simply suit you. Forgive me. Let's come to the message Mr. Modi is sending the media, and then I'm going to give Lalit Modi a chance to respond. Clearly, his position, as Lalit Modi said, is the media can't dictate who will be in the government, the media can't dictate who won't, the media can't set the agenda, and he has a right to say, I'll set the style for my government. On the other hand, how should Mr. Modi respond when the media is exposing scandal and corruption? And they clearly are.
You know, Karan, I said earlier when you stopped me, I was saying that the media is being extremely tenacious this time, which is uncharacteristic, if I may say.
And you applaud that?
There are, of course I applaud it. There are embedded journalists. Now, this time, Mr. Modi knows, Narendra Modi knows that actually this is a fight which is of a different order. Does he want to step into it just now? Because remember, UPA 2 in the first year started losing the battle of perception, and this government is beginning, these are just the glimmers of losing the battle of perception, beginning, the downslide is beginning because the media is quite different to a political party. Now what's happening really is...
No, but answer my question now. The question is this: how then should Mr. Modi respond to a media that is doggedly exposing scandal and corruption?
Wait.
Ignoring it, is that the right response?
No, he's not ignoring it.
He is at the moment.
Just because you think so. But do you think he's not reading the newspaper, the headlines are not going to him, he doesn't know what's happening on television, he doesn't know Twitter, Facebook, etc. He knows everything. The thing is that if I were him, I would also keep quiet, I think. I mean, I'm not going to be him. But what's really important is that, do you understand that the BJP is losing ground, but the Prime Minister will gain ground?
Well, I don't know. That's your very
I'm telling you.
idiosyncratic conclusion. You may well be right. You have a right to that view. But I want to stick doggedly to the Prime Minister's message in his attitude to the media. Dilip Prabhakar first, and then I'll come to Nalin Modi. No one would deny, and I repeat this again, Dilip Prabhakar, that the Prime Minister has the prerogative to decide who to retain, who to choose, who to kick out of his cabinet. But is his brazen defiance of repeated and fairly effective media exposes of scandal and corruption the right way of asserting his prerogative? Is there not a better way of retaining his prerogative and yet responding to what the media is constantly bringing up?
The question, Karan, is whether it is the Prime Minister's prerogative to be so virulently hostile to the media.
Oh, we've lost Dilip again. Oh dear, that is a pity. Very quickly, Prashant, before I go to Lalit Modi, do you want to finish that thought? Because I think the two of you are on the same wavelength.
Can you repeat the question, Karan?
Basically,
I lost you there.
No one would deny that the Prime Minister has a right to decide who he should keep, who he should lose from his cabinet. But is a brazen defiance of the media the right way of asserting his prerogative, or should he be more sympathetic and more responsive in his own interest?
No, the Prime Minister, as we know, is not particularly fond of Delhi's media. He has kept a distance from the media. But I think over the past year, we saw in the last month actually that there seemed to be a realization in the PMO that there had to be some engagement with the media, which is why during the first anniversary there were 4 or 5 off the record interactions that the Prime Minister had with Delhi's press corps. He also had several on the record interviews. It is for the Prime Minister, as you said, to decide who he speaks to and when. And I don't think the media can expect daily interviews or daily comments. This was a platform of Prime Minister Modi's own choosing, the Mann Ki Baat. It was a platform where he could control the narrative. He did not need to answer any questions. He could just have set the ground clear, and he did not need to get into the specifics of the case, but he could have provided an assurance and responded to the media and opposition by saying that this was something that he has noted, and there will be an inquiry, that will look into every aspect of this case at different levels in which there is murkiness. That's all that was required, and the Prime Minister could have done it, which he has not.
Let me put it like this, Lalit Modi. In America, it was the media that exposed Watergate. In Britain, just 2 years ago, it was the media that exposed the phone tapping scandal. In India, and you can't forget this, it was the media that exposed Operation West End and Coffin Gate. It was the media that had pictures of your former party president Bangaru Lakshman taking a lakh and putting it in the drawer at the bottom of his table. After all of that, can Mr. Modi really refuse to respond to media exposes today?
No, I think even 2G, you can't deny it. It started in a newspaper. And therefore, I mean, the media's role is critical. Who's saying that it's not? But I think that to demand and say that the Prime Minister should respond when the media wants, how he wants, I think that demand probably with Mr. Modi might be an excessive demand. He has spoken, and he's often spoken on the issues that you feel that the media is passionate about, but he chooses when he wants to speak, and he has done that throughout Gujarat. He's doing it even now. Or with regard to the Congress party, they certainly can't expect the BJP and the Prime Minister, Modi in particular, to speak on a script given by them. The Congress is entitled to give a script to its leaders. In fact, their leaders speak to a script, even if it's a condolence message in the Nepal embassy, which has to be read off a phone. So they can continue with that model. Don't impose that model on us.
Let me put it like this. The Congress has done everything it could to force Mr. Modi to respond. He hasn't responded. To be honest, the media is doing everything it can to force Mr. Modi to respond. He isn't responding. Do you and I, congressmen and journalists, have to accept Mr. Modi has got the better of us?
No, first of all, just to remind Nalin that the Prime Minister reads from a TV screen all his speeches, and just to to jog his memory. So, and some of the other Bharatiya Janata Party seems to have.
Would you invite? I invite you to one of the.
I'll
invite you to one of our rallies.
Gentlemen,
even the crowds are not manufactured.
Mr. Kumar, I'm running out of time. Answer my question.
I'm coming to the point.
I know you're sensitive with Mr. Rahul Gandhi, and why not?
I don't understand how Arun Jaitley. No, one second.
No, Mr. Kumar, I will soon be out of time. If you don't answer my question, you'll never get a chance. I'll go to someone else. So I'm asking you now. Answer this question now, please.
I'm saying the Bharatiya Janata Party and the Prime Minister may believe that they're getting better offers.
Please, Lalit Modi, let him speak.
The people, Bharatiya Janata, the people of India. And forget Congress, we are raising issues which are close to the people of India, and the press we will have the last laugh. He might think right now he's on a treadmill thinking they're running very fast, and they may have this misconception. The people, public sab janti hai, and they know why is he keeping quiet.
A short comment, please.
In a moment, Lalit Modi, but first let someone else speak.
He claims to be a decisive leader. He's been exposed as a non-decisive leader. He cannot take action against Vasundhara Raje Scindia because he's scared of taking action against Vasundhara Raje Scindia.
Dilip Podankar, let me put it like this. How do we, the media on the one hand, the opposition on the other, force a Prime Minister to respond to the issues we're raising, issues that we believe touch upon impropriety, verge upon corruption, affect the very highest offices of the land, like the Foreign Minister and the Chief Minister of Rajasthan? How do we force the Prime Minister to respond when he simply chooses to keep quiet?
Well, you know, one way of doing that is to tell the Prime Minister that his communication strategy, which is to engage only in monologues, never once come close to a dialogue, is proving to be counterproductive. Because if he doesn't engage in a dialogue with the opposition and with the media, then the question of his credibility again will be at stake. He needs to talk to the media. The media in turn, I think so far the media has, on balance, done a terrific job, but you can't go on this way for too long, because a time will come when the absence of any dialogue on the side of the Prime Minister will give place only to harsher criticism, more speculation, more mindless criticism. And in order to stem that, I think it is important that the Prime Minister should engage with the media. The Prime Minister has, for reasons best known to him, chosen not to have a media advisor. Okay. But I think any communication expert will tell him monologue can never ever replace a true, genuine, two-way discussion.
Lalit Modi, the point that Dilip Patgankar was making is a simple one. If the Prime Minister doesn't start responding to the issues the opposition and the media are raising, then he will himself suffer, because his credibility will be damaged, his image will be damaged, and the way the country perceives him and his government will also suffer. In his own interest, he needs to start responding.
Well, I think the media is entitled to, and by any standard, to have this desire that the Prime Minister should engage with them. That probably desire exists with 125 crore people, that they would like to interact with the Prime Minister, and there's nothing wrong with that. But on the counter viewpoint is that he didn't engage so much in 3 terms as the Chief Minister of Gujarat, and neither throughout the election. He is the Prime Minister. So therefore, you have to credit the Prime Minister and Mr. Modi personally for choosing what he wants to. When he does, he does. In the elections also, he met with the media. Each one had access to him. He started doing that too. But that it would be driven on the desires of, say, the media or the Congress party, that I think is a tad excessive in expectation. A second quick comment is that certainly if the Congress party feels the Prime Minister is failing, they will have the last word. Why are they concerned? They should be celebrating. They should be going to the people. If there is all sorts of things, they don't need to worry about the BJP. This should be time of celebration.
Kohli, they could end up celebrating for the very reason you're suggesting. Don't taunt them too much.
This is what we are raising.
Well, I'm grateful that Mr. Kumar actually has a concern for the BJP. It's heartening to know. I hope we see that concern for India when we are in Parliament.
Government and all the jumlas which you've been saying, like the 15 lakh and the job creation and all that.
I'm going to interrupt there. We've run right out of time. I suppose the moral of today's discussion, if I can misquote a very famous saying, silence is my birthright, and I'm damned if I'll speak when I'm not ready to. My apologies to the past, but that's a very tempting conclusion to come to. My thanks to all my guests for joining me, and if you haven't, thanks for watching. Goodbye, good night.